Welcome back to another summer edition of Channel 6 Sports. I'm Shelby Seitz, and I'm here with Chris Caldwell and Dylan Brown. And today we're going to be talking about some UCA football. The Bears went 7-4 overall, 7-2 in the Southland Conference play. Was there about where you expected them to finish?
I would say yes. I mean, when you look at their schedule in the conference, they only lost 2 games, and that was to the number 1 and number 2 seed. So when you take a look at it, outside of that, they pretty much did really well. And so I would say yes, that's where I would expect it for last year. But for next season, they have a lot higher expectations.
Yeah, I would say they're right around in there somewhere the same way you feel about it, Dylan. Sam Houston State, McNeese State, both two really good teams, very strong teams in the FCS. They actually did a little bit better than I expected them. I thought SFA was going to be tough, and after the season Southeastern Louisiana had before in 2014, I really thought that they were going to have a tough one there, but Coach Campbell and his Bears kind of came through, and I mean, Sam Houston and McNeese, I'll give them those two for this season.
What was more surprising of their overall record, them being 3-2 at home or 4-2 on the road?
I would say 4-2 on the road is a little more surprising. Like we just talked about, Sam Houston and McNeese are really tough games, and the only 2 home losses last season were Sam Houston and McNeese State on the Stripes. And, you know, Bears fans are used to the team always winning at home because those Stripes are what people say, quote-unquote, hypnotizing. But 4-2 on the road, beating SFA, Southeastern Louisiana, those were pretty big. Actually, I didn't have Southeastern on the road. They had them home, but SFA and a couple of those other schools were pretty impressive, like Houston Baptist.
I would agree with Chris. I mean, anytime you play on the road, it's not a given. It's always a lot harder. You're in their atmosphere, their home turf. I mean, and they went 4-2. They had double the wins than they did losses on the road. So I'd say that's more impressive than home wins.
Yeah.
In the early spring period, Coach Campbell signed 7 mid-year transfers. Which of these 7 do you expect to have an immediate impact?
Well, they brought in a guy named Chandler Dexter, 6'6", 255-pound tight end. I mean, that's the Rob Gronkowski, Jason Witten-sized guy playing college ball. I mean, as in Chris was talking about earlier, you've got guys in the Southland Conference that linebackers are 6 foot, maybe 6'1", and then you've got corners 5'10", 5'11". You get in the red zone, that is a great red zone target. You can line them out wide, have them go up over a corner, put them in the middle, break off, release, and go down the middle. That's a hard guy to defend, and I believe they should really utilize him.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the linebacker, James Graves at Mississippi Gulf Coach Community College. You know, he's 6'1", 235. That means he's kind of nimble, like we just talked about, the 6 foot, 6'1" linebackers in the Southland Conference. So you know he's going to be fast. He also led his team with 95 tackles last season and had 55 solo tackles. That kind of explosive player at linebacker for the Bears could be a huge asset in the Southland Conference, especially because we're dealing with smaller offensive lines. Quicker offensive lines, but smaller, and the running backs are not as agile as you're going to see in these bigger conferences, especially when you're looking at quarterbacks that are barely hitting 5'10" or 6 feet sometimes in the Southland. He's going to have the ability to get up in the air and play some of those balls over the middle that may be a little lower than they need to be. So I think Graves is going to be pretty good for the Bears.
One of the biggest strengths that the Bears have is their wide receiver. What do you expect from this group this season?
I'll be honest, I expect Des Smith to be Des Smith. He's gonna have some really good plays, but at the same time, everybody in the conference knows who Desmond Smith is. All right, so they're gonna be defending him. I'm expecting Jatavius Wilson to step up and be a little more open than he used to be in the last season. He's got more experience. But the receiving core is also going to have to step up. You're going to have to see some effort from Cox also, because with those 2 players being well known in the Southland Conference, Wilson, you know, having over 800 yards and Smith having over 800 yards and Wilson having over 500, they're going to key on those 2 receivers. It's going to be important for Hildebrand to have somebody else to dump it off to in that 3 or 4 spot, which you were talking about, that tight end. If we can use that tight end, then he can be a major part of that receiving core also, and possibly open it up for Smith and Wilson later on in the season.
I mean, I expect the group to put up some really big numbers. Last year, Hayden Hildebrandt came in. He didn't start all the games. And this year, he has a full offseason under his belt. He's been working with all the running backs, the receivers, tight ends. They've got good communication, the signals. I think they'll be able to do good this year because they've had the entire time to get used to it.
Desmond Smith approached a couple of Central Arkansas records with 67 receptions and 817 yards. Do you think he can break the record of 76 receptions and 1,197 yards?
I mean, when you look at it, Desmond Smith, first off, congrats to him. I mean, he played with 2 different quarterbacks throughout the year. And that can just be really difficult, swapping back and forth. But to get the receptions, I believe he can get the receptions. I think he'll put up at least 80 catches. But the yards, I'll give him 1,000 yards receiving, but I just don't see him breaking the record.
Yeah, I'm going to give him the record. I'm going to think he's going to do it with Whitehead gone, and Whitehead was a huge part of this Bears offense. He's gone. Now the number one receiver spot is going to really be up on, Smith. And on top of that, you got Hildebrand, who looks like he's going to get all the starts this season. He's the most mature quarterback they have, and he put up 1,700 yards last season as a QB without even starting every game. He was switching in and out with Taylor Reed back and forth. And so with Smith being able to have one quarterback who knows him well, who understands the offense because it's his offense, I think Smith will be fine as long as, like I said in the previous question, that 2 and 3 receivers step their game up and take some of the pressure off Smith. Because we've all seen it in the NFL, we've seen it in college. You can have a number one receiver that's amazing, fast, powerful, can do everything you want to do, but what does it do for you when you have nothing else behind you? Look at the Cowboys and Des Bryant.
Yeah.
What did Des Bryant do all season long? Well, he was hurt for this season, but last season, what could he do?
Yeah.
Okay, so Desmond Smith, strong receiver, very talented, has NFL possibilities, can't do a single thing if the 2 and 3 don't step up and help him get free.
Although the Bears are stacked at receiver, would you like to see more production from the tight ends?
Favorite question on this list. The tight end is one of my favorite positions to watch. As an ex-offensive lineman in college, I played guard. Every time I would block, I would sit back and watch the tight end release. I would know that we were going to get a first down because that tight end was there. UCA doesn't use our tight end that much. You said it earlier, Dylan. It will be great to see the tight end be used. We got a 6'6", 255-pound guy coming in as a transfer with college experience, has played in the junior college playoff system. Why not use him? He may be listed as a blocking tight end, but I told you before the show, 6'6", 255. He's got to be running somewhere around a 4'8", 4'9", 40. He'd be great in the Southland against these short linebackers who aren't going to be able to defend him very well because you may be able to jump a 40-inch vertical, but if that tight end can jump a 36-inch vertical and he's 5 inches taller than you, what good are you going to be against him on defense? Hildebrand can throw the ball up nice and high where only this tight end can reach it, get some easy first downs, nickel and dime it all the way down the field, and that would be a great asset for the Bears.
I agree. If you use the tight ends like as much as you can, that just helps exploit the offense and spread it out wider. That's more people to defend. It helps the running back get better lanes, especially if they get the run game going. When you blow out for the play action pass, if you got your tight end flaring out, that's another guy that can just stretch the field. And I really believe that would help Smith and Wilson get their production more because if you've got a valuable tight end across the middle, they have to account for him. So they're not just going to be locking down your number 1 or your number 2. You're going to have to defend all the way across the board, and I think that could be a huge asset.
So if we use the tight end the way we're talking about using it, are you going to give Smith the record at that point? Because if that tight end is successful at opening up the passing game for the Bears, you mean to tell me that you don't think Smith's going to hit that record?
I think he will because if you can utilize the tight end, I think it'll change the coverages around and give him more one-on-one opportunities over the top to really help him put up those big numbers.
On the offensive side, who are 3 players you think that will break out?
One, I'm going to go with the obvious one, quarterback, Hayden Hildebrandt. It's going to be his first year to fully start all games as long as he stays healthy, which I think he should. That'd be a guy to watch out for. A running back, Darian Daniels. I was talking with Coach Warner, the running backs coach, and he really likes him using as a scat back, and I've had opportunities to watch him play. I really think he's going to do good. And the guy I got is the number 2 receiver, Wilson. I really think he's going to step up his game this year and help out Smith.
Yeah, we agree for the most part on 2 people, Tavius Wilson and Hildebrand. Hildebrand starting all those games is going to be great, and Wilson understanding the offense better and the Southland and just FCS ball in general should be better. But I'm going to go with someone different on my third one. It's Antoine Wells. Antoine Wells was redshirted last season, ended up being really great in the spring game. Great power back, straight up the middle. I think he's going to go well with Daniels as that scat back. And we could see that 1-2 combination like we saw last year with Veasley and Thomas.
What about 3 players on the defense?
On the defense, one of my players is real simple. It's a group effort on the defensive line. I'm waiting for that defensive line to show me who can replace Woodard. Woodard was a great player for UCA. We all know this, especially here at Channel 6 because Woodard and his mom, every game. Woodard's mom every game, but I digressed on that one. who is going to step up, get the sacks in the backfield, who's going to pressure the quarterback and make it easy on that UCA Bears secondary is what I want to know. And speaking of in the secondary, I'm looking at Tyler Williams. I'm hoping Tyler Williams steps up and does some interesting things in the defensive backfield. And I'm looking at Chris Chambers at outside linebacker. Outside linebacker, very young, looking to find his place on the UCA Bears defense, a defense that's usually pretty good. So those are my 3 players, I guess you can call it, since I put a group together in there, but that's what I'm looking forward to.
I'm going to go with the nose guard, Ricky Dobbins. Last year he was a freshman. He put up 2 sacks. But with Jonathan Woodard gone, I really believe that they're going to be looking to lean on him and just really get the pass rush going and help be a run stopper. Desmond Smith at corner, I think he was going to have a really good breakout year. He had tied for the team high with 5 interceptions last year. And then my last one, with Devin Spurlock being gone, he led the team in tackles. They brought in a mid-year transfer, a new guy named Jalen Lofton, and I think he's going to come in and pick up where Spurlock left off and try to lock down in the defensive back.
What do you think about this guy, Trey Mosley, as a transfer from Nebraska? I mean, he was a top 60 defensive back, out of Texas coming into, and he went to Nebraska, which is a Big Ten school. Pretty big environment. I wouldn't say that their defense was that great. He couldn't get much playtime there. He's only 5'10", 170 pounds. Do you think he has a spot on this UCA defense, or do you think he's just a transfer that's a filler for the Bears?
For right now, I would say he's probably a filler. Once they get like a real good look at him, get through, we are just now done with the spring practices. Once they get the summer and the fall practices to really see what he's got. But for this season, I see him as a filler. And next year, if they're looking at him as what he promised to be, I could see him being a full-time starter.
With spring camp wrapping up, what do you think the Bears are focused on during this last month?
I believe their biggest concern is the offensive line. They lost 5 starting guys, and Coach Campbell has been really drilling them hard about picking up protection, making sure the quarterbacks are all right, don't get knocked around, the running backs have the right lanes, just knowing your stuff, and I believe that goes for the whole team. Just know your assignments and don't get lazy throughout the game and just finish strong.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Offensive line, losing 5 starters on offensive line is a huge deal. But the way they looked in that spring game when they dominated the defense, I would say the offensive line looks pretty good. I will say they're going to focus on that defense also. You lost some firepower on that defensive line. You knew that Jonathan Woodard was going to get double teamed. So you had some stunts you could use. You had some gaps that were open because they were double teaming Woodard. So I would say let's just look at both sides of the line, offensive and defensive. Some improvements need to be made on both ends.
With 2015 in the past and this new season coming up, what circles do you have, or what games do you have circled as your favorite?
Oh, that's real simple for me. Arkansas State is one of the ones right away. It's an FBS test. They may be in the Sun Belt, but it's an FBS test. And Arkansas State is a good team. They've been bowling the past few years. Should be fun in Jonesboro. The last time they played, UCA didn't even have their starting quarterback for the whole game, and UCA played them pretty strong in the first half. I think they went into the locker rooms, and it was only a 7-point game at halftime. After they came back out, they got destroyed. And Sam Houston State. Sam Houston's always a fun end-of-the-year game. We usually mix it up, who plays where in the middle of the schedule, but for some reason, Sam Houston State's always our last game of the season, and it's always exciting. And, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, actually, when UCA ended up getting a share of that Southland Conference title by beating Sam Houston on the field and on the stripes, actually, and watching them lift that trophy. So Arkansas State, Sam Houston, early game in the season, late game in the season, should be both exciting for Bears fans.
I've got McNeese and Sam Houston State as my 2 picked. The Bears have a bye week before they head to go play McNeese, and I think with that extra week off to prepare, they're going to get that rematch win against McNeese. And then the other one I have circled is the regular season finale, where they head back to Sam Houston to battle it out. And hopefully it'll be for the conference title.
The thing I have with McNeese is, they don't have their head football coach anymore, right?
Yeah, he went to they left.
Yeah, he left. And there's something I was thinking about earlier. Without that football coach there, how much is the culture and the atmosphere of that team going to change? And it's one of those things where, is the Red Beans and Rice Bowl going to be that exciting as it has been in the past few years without that, head coach that's been there and helped build that program?
I think that's really going to benefit UCA. I mean, when you lose a head coach, that is a big void to fill. I think that's perfect. Right now, UCA, I feel like they're coming up, they're starting to peak more the longer they're under Coach Campbell. And I think if they're going to have a chance to hop up now, it would be this time with them.
So is that game really as exciting as you would say like in Arkansas State? Because, UCA fans and just fans in general would just love to see UCA play Arkansas. And if they can do well against Arkansas State, wouldn't you think that would be kind of like a, hey, this is our ticket. We're trying to play this big team in Arkansas. You should finally let it happen. Because in my opinion, if UCA goes and handles Arkansas State and does well, may not beat them, but does well, then in your mind as a fan, you got to be like, well, hey, why don't they ever play U of A or things like that? And fans in Arkansas know why that doesn't happen, but I don't know. I just kind of see that as more of an exciting game because there's something at stake there for the Bears, and we know that it's going to be a tough game versus McNeese State, where we're looking at a new regime, a new system, and may not be as exciting as it has been in the past.
But it's a conference game, and conference games, they have a lot more meaning than a non-conference game because they decide who could be the number one or the number two. As you look last year, they were tied for second, but McNeese pulled ahead of them to get that playoff spot.
McNeese pulled ahead of them with last year's head coach.
True.
I agree. It is a conference game, and any game in the Southland Conference is going to be exciting. It's great football. You might as well call us the SEC of SES, okay? But I'm just throwing it out there. If UCA gets blown out, if UCA blows out McNeese State in Louisiana, I want you to come on this show and tell me I was right.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Speaking of the Arkansas State game in Jonesboro, which is September 24th, do you think this is the biggest road game that the Bears have, or is there a conference game that is bigger?
I would say their conference game that's the biggest one would be at Sam Houston State, and I know I keep coming back to that, but I really believe going on the road, season finale, I think that is going to be a big game because I believe that game will decide who gets into the playoffs.
I agree completely on that one. Sam Houston is going to be the biggest road game they play, but it's only going to stay that way if they do their job during the rest of the season. If they can beat, SFA on the road or Southeast Louisiana on the road, then that game is going to be as important. So in my opinion, every conference road game up until that point is going to be the biggest road game if they do what they have to do.
What is your biggest question surrounding the Bears between now, the season opener against Houston Baptist on September 1st?
My biggest question is defense. What are we going to have on the defensive side of the ball? Everybody knows Hildebrand can throw the ball. Everybody knows that we have receivers that can handle their job. What are we going to have in the defensive backfield that's going to stand up? Because like you said, we lost Spurlock. So what are we going to do back there? What are we going to do on the defensive line? We lost Woodard. And is our linebacking core going to be as strong as they should be? And so offensively, I feel like the Bears are going to be fine because if you watch the spring game, the offense was wonderful. But at the same time, who can't score against their own defense? You know everything that they're going to do. My biggest question is still this defense and what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to pressure the quarterback? And are we going to be able to keep teams out of the red zone and the end zone?
My biggest questions are on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going back to the offense. Like we said in the spring game, it's really easy to know what you're going to go up against when you're playing against the same guys every day. So the offensive line looked good then, but will they look good in week 1 or week 8 or week 11 when it comes down to it? And my second one is with the running backs. You lost your 2 leading rushers, and you really don't have the number 1 guy right now. Right now, it's a backfield by committee. So we just got to wait and see how that turns out.
All right. What are your final predictions for the Bears, and do you have any bold predictions?
My final prediction is I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Bears go 10-1, and their only loss is going to come to Sam Houston State in the final.
Only lost to Sam Houston State, but McNeese State is such an exciting game. Just throwing that out there. My prediction is that they're going to go 9-2. 9-2. They're gonna lose to Samford, and they're going to lose to Arkansas State. But I don't see them really dropping any games in the Southland just because I feel like Campbell's got everybody where he wants them to be. The offense does have some issues. The defense has issues. But these early games against these tougher opponents are going to help solidify that core, and it's going to kind of help build that brotherhood that they need to battle in the Southland. And I think 9-2 is going to be good. A bold prediction. I think my record enough is a bold prediction. 9-2 undefeated in the Southland is a huge bold prediction. But I'm going to go ahead and say they make it past the first round of the playoffs also.
All right. Thank you, Dylan and Chris. I'm Shelby Seitz. This has been another special edition of Channel 6 Sports. We'll be right back with more.